It's spring football season, and not just for our collegiate athletes. The UFL is back, and to me, it's an ideal tool for HBCU players who didn't make it to the league the first go around. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter. South Exclusive starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now, new customers at FanDuel can get $200 back in bonus bets when you put down your first winning $5 bet. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Shakir O'Neal's decision to leave FAMU and enter the transfer portal. I don't really understand this, and I'll tell you why at the end of the episode. In segment 2, Robert Jones makes a powerful statement by extending his contract with Norfolk State University, staying on as their men's basketball coach through 2032. But right now, I want to break down one play and how it extends to all HBCU athletes and why they should be attempting to go to the UFL. I want to be very clear. If you do not know you're going to get drafted, if you do not feel you're going to get drafted, I would be taking the UFL as my first option. I think that players who feel they'll get drafted or feel they'll be a priority free agent, let me say that. If you don't know if you're going to get drafted, if you don't feel like the draft is in your future, I'm going to the UFL because I would rather go there and probably improve my stock. That's the way that I look at it, at least. See, as we enter, there's certain players, right? Like there's certain players who are going to hear their name. We think Carson Vincent is going to hear his name. For whatever reason, if that didn't happen, knock on wood, but if that didn't happen, then we would assume he'd be a priority free agent. I feel that way about a couple of guys. Even if I don't know if they'll be drafted, I think that they'll be highly valued and could get a nice contract as a UDFA. If you don't know, if you don't feel, if your gut isn't saying you think that you're going to be drafted or be a priority undrafted free agent, I would seriously consider making the UFL my first option because it'll allow you to boost up your stock in a way that you won't get a chance to in many other places. I think that stepping into a camp with value is sometimes underrated. Sometimes we say just get into a camp, and that is true. If you get into a camp, you have a chance, and that is by far the best ideal. That's the best situation for you if everything was ideal within that situation. If I'm going in there into an NFL camp with low value, it's going to take so much more for me to fight at the end of the day to make a 53, to make a practice squad. It's going to be difficult if I'm already player 90. I'm already player 88. Like if I'm already down there, it's difficult. But if I can go to the UFL and build my stock up a little bit, and maybe I can come in as player 64. Now we talking about a different situation. I'll take one play. Game 1 of the UFL season, Jarveon Howard ended that game with the longest run in league history. 74-yard touchdown run. Now, that only held for about 24 hours because the next day somebody comes in and they run a 77-yard. But it's the fact that when you did it, not only is it 74 yards for Howard, not only is it a touchdown for Howard, but it's also the longest run in league history. So you know it's getting a little bit of traction. Do I think that everybody is paying attention to social media to try to scout spring league players? No, I don't want to say that. But Jarveon Howard having that run, especially with it being in week 1, him having that run is a perfect setup because now it is going to catch eyes. He did show that he had different traits such as breakaway speed. I'll say good long speed. I wouldn't say breakaway speed. Good long speed on that run. He had slight agility to avoid the first defender. I think it was the safety. And then you had a cornerback coming from or from that boundary, right? And I thought he showed great contact balance there to be able to shrug him off. There were a lot of traits in that. Is he going to get that every game? No. Jarveon Howard had a 74-yard touchdown run that I believe will put a lot of eyes on him to see what he'll do next. But if you're expecting him to be a home run hitting 40+ yard touchdown running back all the time, no, I'm not counting on that. I know what he's capable of. I watched him at Alcorn. I thought that he had a really good season with the Braves, really pair a good season with the Braves. I want to see if those traits I mentioned can show up often. I don't want to see if you can be a home run hitter all the time. That'd be nice. And if he does, I think that a call from the NFL is for sure in his future. But I want to see, can you show agility within the hole? Can you show the ability to have contact balance when it's not a defensive back, but it's a linebacker? Can you show good decisiveness? Because that was blocked really well and he hit the hole, but it's not always going to be blocked that well. Can I still see the decisiveness? Can I get, when there's nothing there, can I get an extra half, extra yard, maybe even 2? These are things that I want to see from Howard. And now my eyes are on him. I'm talking from a scout perspective. I want to see, now that I know who you are, you had that play, I'll probably look for you the next game. I'm not watching for you 3-4 games in a row if you do nothing. But if I'm a scout for the NFL and I seen this player just pull off this run, I do think that it's impressive. Objectively speaking, I believe that Jarveon Howard's run, his 74-yard touchdown run, was a very impressive play. He showed decisiveness. I know that the blocking was phenomenal, but then when he got 2 players, he showed agility to be able to get out of the first tackle, contact balance where the guy had arms around him. He spun out of it, and he kept running to complete the touchdown. These are traits that you can show throughout the season. Objectively speaking, that is a good run. Now it's on Howard for the rest of the season, or at least these next couple of games, to stack moments that doesn't make that a fleeting thought. Now it's on Howard to showcase these traits that I said are repeatable, to showcase these traits that I believe can be repeated. You have to repeat them. But that's the beauty of the UFL. For many HBCU athletes, you have to deal with the competition conversations. Oh, what about this level of competition you played? This level of competition you played? I'm not here to tell you that this is all of a sudden going to be looked at as the SEC when you step into the UFL, but everybody's on an even playing field. The UFL is great for a couple of things. One, seeing players, I was like, oh man, I forgot about them. I'll be honest with you. I forgot about Jarveon Howard. It was good to see him again. And then the second thing that is good for is getting opportunities for people who didn't make it to the league the first go around, or maybe people who failed out of the league. Now, granted, for most of our HBCU athletes, the latter isn't the case. So let's focus on the former. I'm looking at these HBCU players who had to deal with conversations about what competition level they played at. I can guarantee you, if you go in there, you consistently produce at the UFL, people have been pulled up. I'm not here to tell you that HBCU athletes have done this number and that number and this number and that number. I don't know those figures. But what I will say is I've seen UFL players make it to the NFL. I like the chances of HBCU players succeeding in the UFL and possibly making it to the NFL. That is what I'm here to say. I think that this is very important. I don't think that this should be understated. I don't think that this should be skipped over. Jarveon Howard's play is an ideal way to look at it. I think that the Falcons got some special teamer that came from the XFL. He came from Alcorn. I can't remember who he was. I think it was with the XFL, because I think this was before the unification. But what's his name? Pine or something like that. He ended up recovering a fumble or something. I think he made a play or something against the Saints. But the point is, this happens. And I think that it's a better proving ground. I think it's a more accepted proving ground by scouts than the FCS level. That's what I think. I think that there is no SEC to turn and look to, right? Like, that's the beautiful part of it, is in the HBCU, or really just expand into the FCS. In the FCS football realm, you'll have people who are always looking, well, there's a better level over here, so I'm going to focus over here. But if we're watching spring football, and trust me, they're watching spring football, the only place for you really to go is the UFL here. There is no, I'm going to keep my eyes on the XFL now instead of the USFL. They've merged. They've unified. So when we see these HBCU players, if I'm an incoming rookie and I don't know if I'm making it, I'm going here because it gives me my opportunity to play I might miss a little bit of camp, maybe. I'd have to look at the timeline for that, but it allows me to improve my stock, play football, show you guys what I can do, kill this and dispel this whole competition narrative, and then I still be able to get in time for camp. I think that's a really good opportunity. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes the most sense, to be honest. So that's why I think that the UFL should be respected. I think it should be looked at in a very high regard and should be looked at as a premier option for all HBCU athletes, knowing how the draft has treated us in the past. That's me personally. Now let's push forward and talk about how people have been treated. Robert Jones had a lot to say about how Norfolk State had been treated in their men's basketball team. I thought it was going to lead to him departing, but he actually signs a contract extension that I want to get into as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're down to the Final Four, which means we only have 3 games left in the men's and women's tournament. Can Dawn Staley in South Carolina get it going again? Can Cooper Flagg in Duke get it going this year? What about UH? Shout out my guy Parker. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Cougs. I'm rooting for UH now. I'm rooting for them boys across Scott. Who are you rooting for? Who cares who you're rooting for? Who are you confident enough to put your money on? That's what you need to decide at FanDuel. So you go ahead and go to FanDuel.com. And let's say that you want to go with something easy before you get into the Final Four. That's fine. It makes sense. You put down a $5 bet that you have a lot of confidence in and it wins, then you're able to get $200 back in bonus bets for you to put down on some more risky bets, such as the Final Four matchups or even the Big Dance Finals. So it's on you now. The ball is in your court. Go to FanDuel.com and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. And if you're new, you get $200 back in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, like I said, check out Locked On Cougs or check out Locked On College Basketball. One is a team that's still in the big dance, and one is going to cover the entirety of the dance. So you just pick. I think they both do a great job. Shout out to my guy Parker once again. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Cougs. Now, segment 2. It's all about Robert Jones and how I think that his extension is a powerful statement. Robert Jones choosing to stay at Norfolk State University is a powerful statement. And the reason I emphasize choosing is because his staying is a choice. Robert Jones choosing to stay is a choice because I can guarantee you there are people on his phone. There are people saying leave Norfolk State. And some of the comments he made after the season, I thought were leading to a departure. And it's not as if he was bashing Norfolk State, but I thought that he was very frustrated. He clearly was very frustrated. And I think that frustration could go either way. Frustration can lead to you departing, or frustration can lead to you advocating even stronger. And I think that we've seen with this contract extension that'll keep him along into the next decade, this is him starting to advocate even stronger. You look at the things that he spoke on. Everybody isn't speaking on these things. Robert Jones came in after the season, not even after the season. If you look at after the tournament and said, there's no way we should be a 16 seed. And then when they come in there a 16 seed, he's talking about how it's a travesty. He's talking about the things that they've done. He's talking about how unfair it is. You have people like me sitting here talking about the net rankings, this, that, and the third. But the truth is, he lists off, I've done this, or excuse me, we've done this. They didn't do this. How are they ahead of us? It's a conversation to be had, but I thought that conversation was going to result in something different. So then you lose to Florida. He comes and said, look, we shouldn't even been playing Florida. I'm going to stand on that. They end up covering the spread. Actually, believe it or not, they did end up covering the spread. He made a joke about that because I think the cover was by 2-3 points, but they did cover. But then after he says, we shouldn't even been playing Florida. So he's not letting go of this whole bias against MEAC schools, against HBCUs, because the SWAC is, they're going to get that too. So it's both. It's not something that he was just going to let pass away after the moment he said it. Then you see another thing that he comes out and says. He says that, hey, mid-majors are glorified JUCOs because we have such a difficult time retaining talent and the transfer portal is eating us. So when you look at let's make the mix of Robert Jones. Let's make a little bit of gumbo, right? So Robert Jones is a very successful head coach. I think that his resume, take all of the comments he made aside, Robert Jones's resume is good enough to where teams are going to come in and start inquiring. Then he comes out and starts talking about how it's an HBCU bias. I could easily see him getting tired of this, and I don't want to deal with this anymore. Talking about the struggle to retain talent at a mid-major, called it a glorified JUCO, essentially. I could see him looking at these frustrating topics, these frustrating parts of his job, and say, I don't want to deal with this. And people wanted him elsewhere. He said this after the job, after his extension was signed. With success comes suitors, but I'm happy to be a Spartan. It's not a difficult premise here. It's not something that was unforeseen. I'll say this, and I've kind of laid out the reasons why, but I'll do it again real briefly. I personally felt there was a really good chance that Norfolk State would lose their men's and women's basketball coaches. Now, Larry Vickers did leave for Auburn on the women's side. I thought that Robert Jones was another guy who could have left. Clearly, by his comment, when success or with success comes suitors, but I'm happy to be a Spartan. There were people who were calling his phone. He had comments about frustrating aspects of his job that Norfolk State couldn't control. This was outside forces essentially suppressing Norfolk State and really suppressing HBCUs. I thought the frustration would be too much. The fact that he chose to stay, I'm going to keep saying that. Chose is a very important word here because there's certain people who can't get another job. There are people who cannot go elsewhere. Robert Jones is not one of those people. If he wanted to leave Norfolk State this offseason, he could have done it. I firmly believe it. I don't think that he's just talking. So why would they come calling? Because let's actually get into his resume. Number one, he won a CIT last year. And as somebody who went to TSU and I've seen NCAA tournaments, I've seen different things, right? I've seen players of the year. I've seen the highs. But I remember when we went to this no-name tournament. I don't even remember what it's called. I'll be honest with you. I don't even remember what it's called. Not only was that a great experience and one of the most fun times I had being a reporter, not only was it that, you also had the joy of progressing farther in a tournament. So when you're actually progressing further in that tournament, it feels different. I'm not here to tell you that a big dance title and a CIT title are the same thing, but I'll tell you what, winning a CIT title feels a lot better than leaving in the first four. Feels even better than winning the first four and then having to face the number one seed that squashes you. It's a different feeling. There's a pride that comes with winning, no matter what level you're winning on. And I think that being able to win that CIT championship, to bring a non-conference championship back to an HBCU, is something that will never be understated, not at least by me. I have to salute Coach Jones for that. And then you look at the fact that he's had 5 regular season titles, 3 tournament titles. He's had a whole lot of success, and he's been there for 12 seasons. Most of these titles have come recently. That will tell you that he's starting to really get into his groove. It'll tell you that he's really starting to pick up steam as a coach. Norfolk State Twitter account put up a tweet isolating the recent seasons by Coach Jones, and I thought that this was really good. They said Coach Jones is 94-40 in his last 4 years. That's a 70.1% win percentage and an average of 23.5 wins per season. Those are really good numbers, don't you think? Those are really good numbers. So to me, being able to retain him is a big deal. And you know what? I know they giving up the bag because we looked at the finances. We did a little bit of pocket watching not too long ago. When we did our pocket watching, I want you to remember where Robert Jones stood, but not just where he stood as far as rankings, but how far he stood away from second place. See, now if it's a close finish, let's say I run a 4-4 and you run a 4-4-5, we right there neck and neck. But if I run a 4-4-4 and you run a 4-6-7, it's a gap. And I'm talking about 40-yard dashes here. But when you're looking at Robert Jones's contract, opposed to everybody else who's reported in the MEAC, he was 50,000 ahead of every other person, at least. And I can guarantee you it's bumping up. It's probably going to be in the 60, 70,000 range ahead of the second place person. Robert Jones is getting a bag to be the Norfolk State head coach. I know that I could sit here and tell you every single year I think Jones is going to leave. We in media have a bad habit of doing that. We in media have a bad habit of latching on to somebody leaving, and technically we could just keep saying it until it happens, and eventually it will happen. Well, as somebody who is a Pelicans fan, who is a Saints fan, who is a small market fan, and has had to see that happen with his best players on a consistent basis, I won't do that to you. Instead, I will leave this idea of Robert Jones leaving alone until a serious school is tied, until another school is seriously tied to him. I'm leaving that alone. I don't know if this is the Willie Simmons type of deal where you got to keep breaking off more change. I don't know. But what I will say is that Robert Jones is a phenomenal coach. And as long as Alcorn, excuse me, I'm talking about Alcorn because Bussy left. But as long as Norfolk State can hold on to him, this is going to be a really strong team. This is going to be a team that's competitive and somebody you can consistently expect to be at the top of the conference. But FAMU, they just lost Shaqir O'Neal. I don't know why he left. I'm going to tell you why I'm a little bit conflicted on that as we continue with Locked On HBCU.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
As wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. I don't really understand why Shakir O'Neal hit the transfer portal. Maybe he felt like it was stagnant for him at FAMU. That's the only thing that I could think of because he's coming off of the best season of his career. And I don't know why you would leave somewhere after what happened at Texas Southern. At TSU, he didn't really see the floor. He didn't get much time. It just wasn't a place that was built to succeed for him. For whatever reason, he wasn't able to succeed at TSU. So he sat idle for a couple of years. I don't know why when you get to FAMU and you get a little bit of action, you desire to go somewhere else. Patrick Crary is coming back. You're having a lot of people who are going to transfer out of that school, who have transferred out of that school. You're going to have some people who are coming back, of course. But when I go through and I look at FAMU stats on an individual level, I also just I don't think that he did enough to boost his stock. That's another thing, but we'll get to that in a second. You look at guys who are high in blocks. So Shakir is 3rd in blocks with 15 on the team. You look at Jadarius Eastman, or Eatman, excuse me. He's a grad student. I'm going to assume he's leaving. I know some grad students end up getting 2 years. It's some weird business, but I think he's going to be gone unless he could also take advantage of that JUCO rule. But right now we're going to operate under the assumption that he's gone. The same thing with rebounds. He's ahead of Shakir in rebounds as well. But then secondly, I'm looking at Jameen Charles. He's a junior. He's going to stay. But it could be you two together. That's the only thing I'm thinking about is people ahead of him. Maybe he feels like I can't get past Charles in the pecking order, so I need to go somewhere else where I can have a bigger role. Maybe that's the reason, but I just feel like it's a little too risky. I don't think that he's done enough to boost up his stock. I don't think he's done enough to say I'm going to go somewhere and they're going to give me guarantees. I put guarantees in air quotes here because I don't think anything is really guaranteed, but they'll make promises that I'll be a certain place on the in the rotation. I don't necessarily think that he's done that. I don't. Not only say necessarily, I'm not going to hedge my bets here. I don't think that Shakir O'Neal has done enough in his years on the college ranks to go somewhere and they say, yeah, we for sure want to put you in the starting lineup. I don't think he's done that because he also just hasn't had enough time, right? So he even in FAMU, even with FAMU, if we're talking about minutes wise, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th. He's 8th in minutes. Now, some of those guys are going to leave, but I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, what's the better option for Shakir O'Neal? Stay at FAMU and try to work your way up the depth chart with a coach that you've already worked with. He's got you a little bit more production, or go somewhere else and try to start over in your final season. I'm staying at FAMU. If I'm Shakir O'Neal, I'm staying at FAMU. Now, you look at his numbers. Why am I so adamant that he hasn't built up that cachet? Well, let's go to points first off. So Shakir O'Neal averaged 6.7 points this year. Okay. He averaged 3.2 rebounds. And he averaged less than 1 block a game. Now, granted, that's 15 starts, 15 blocks if you want to operate that way. He didn't have a lot of time. Maybe I could be a little bit more impressed with his blocks, seeing that he didn't play a lot. He only had 15 starts, but he played 27 games. That's almost half a block a game. I would like to see you get up to 1, around 1. I would like to see you get your points a little bit higher. I would like to see you average 5 or more rebounds a game. That's things that I would like to see you do before you enter the portal. So for me, I don't think that he's done enough to raise his stock. We spent the beginning of the episode talking about how the UFL allows you to build stock before you enter into a training camp. I view this the very same way. I'm trying to build as much stock as I possibly can before I enter the portal, because that allows me a little bit more room when I get to my new destination. It gives me a little bit more favor when I get to my new team, to my new school. So while if I don't come in with a lot of production, they're probably not going to assume I'm going to give them a lot of production. They may assume they can get the best of me, but the best of me looks different when you're talking about a guy averaging 6'3" versus a guy averaging 9 and 8. I'm not even throwing out crazy numbers here, but I think it just looks different. You're 6'8". I would like to see you hit the boards a little bit better. I would like to see you have a couple of more blocks on his team. That's just me. I think that he could have been a bigger part of FAMU, and he was not. He averaged less than 20 minutes a game. Because of that, people are not going to look for him to be a 28-minute per game guy. They're not going to look at him to be a 33-minute per game guy. I think that you're going to go into another situation where you are averaging 20 some odd minutes, give or take, in a game. I would have just stayed at FAMU. That's me personally. Now, on tomorrow's episode, we'll take a look at Robert McDaniels. No, I don't know why I keep adding an S to his name. Robert McDaniel. But Robert McDaniel, because he had a really good pro day. He had a really good pro day with Jackson State. I want to look at how this helps his odds on tomorrow's episode. But in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.